It's another beautiful day to listen or watch the Peak Signing Agents podcast with me, your host, DVO, Derek Van Otten, where I'm helping you become the best notary and signing agent you can be, because we are important. What we do in the world, whether we are notarizing important documents or doing loan closings, mortgage closings, we are vital to getting things done properly, and I want to bring the best advice to you all. And on this episode is no exception, because I'm talking about pens. Now, in some of the forums that I'm a part of, one of the most fun posts that I like to read about when someone's asking questions are the types of pens that people use. I'm always kind of curious what people use. So I thought that I would kind of share what I use. I'll share with you exactly what I use for when I'm doing closings and which pen that I specifically use, because I like to think of myself as maybe a pen snob. And I love when I hear other notaries talk about that they're pen snobs as well. I'm always curious, what is everyone using? What should you be using? Ballpoint, gel, fountain? What are you using? In fact, go to YouTube and comment what type of pen are you using and why. I'd love to know why as well. Okay. Let's talk about what type of pens I'm using, what type of pens you should be using. I'm going to say this. I'm talking about loan signings real quick. 99.5% of the time, you will be using some type of blue ink pen. 99.5% of the time. There are going to be a few that want black ink. And I'm talking about loan signings here. So I'm going to say the ones that I usually see are going to be Discover or Wells Fargo. I've seen a couple of them ask specifically to use black ink. Not all the time, just a couple times. And then anything else, general notary work, can pretty much be used with any color of ink. Well, I shouldn't say that. Black or blue. Never use anything besides black or blue ink. That's just my recommendation. I'm sure your friend that wants something notarized, and if you just happen to use a red ink pen, I'm sure it's not a big deal, but I wouldn't even chance it. I would just say you are going to be fine always using black or blue. And when it comes to mortgage and loan signings, 99.5% of the time, you're going to be using blue. But anything else, unless they specifically ask you or specifically tell you what color of ink, you're fine. I'm talking about if you're doing an I-9, if you're doing a debt consolidation, a title loan, or a car title transfer is what I really mean to say. Things like that, it can be used, I'm pretty sure, a black or blue ink. Someone's needed you to sign the passport or a certification of a copy, different things like that. Black or blue, you're going to be totally fine. But when it comes to loan signings, 99.5% of the time, you're going to be using blue ink. Why? Why must you use blue ink? Well, I don't know. And I bet most mortgage companies don't know at this point either. I think it's just something that they used to do. I've heard a couple different reasons. One is you can tell an original from a copy, or when they scan, the blue looks better. I've heard sometimes they would lick their finger and kind of smudge it to see if there was blue streaks to make sure it was the authentic original. I don't know. In this day of age, everything gets scanned. Everything gets scanned nowadays, and the quality of scanners are so great. I don't think it really matters, but it's just the mortgage company is slow to adapt. They get stuck in their ways. Hence why we still do a lot of paperwork versus a lot of it electronically. They're slow to adapt. We all know that now. Okay, and I'm sure there's no real good reason why it has to be a certain color. It's just that's how it's been done for so long. They just want to keep it that way. So we'll keep it that way too. Not a big deal. We'll do whatever they want. So let me share with you what pens I use. Again, there's ballpoint pens, there's gel pens, there's rollerball pens, there's fountain pens. What am I personally using? What do I personally use for myself? What do I have the signers use? What do I recommend? Let's talk about that. But I do keep a couple black pens with me. I keep only about 3 black pens with me because I rarely use a black pen. And even if I do some type of general notary work, I just use a blue pen unless they specifically say to use a certain color. Because I have so many blue pens. In fact, in my house, I can't find a black pen anywhere in my house anymore. My house used to only have black pens, and I had to, buy a bunch of blue pens to get started in this business. And now I can't find a black pen anywhere unless I go to my notary bag. I personally like to use gel pens. Me personally. Okay? And I'll say which brand I use and why in a moment. But I carry just a couple black in my notary bag. I got my notary bag right next to me. And I do have a couple extra. I have a lot of extra pens in the mobile office, which I'm recording out of. So I always have a couple backups that I have here. But I like gel pens. So I have a couple black ones. And then let me tell you what I do for my signings. Now again, I work 99% of the time direct. I only work direct. So I have lots of pens from my directs, and they're falling. Because if you're listening, I've got a handful full of pens, and they're falling down as I'm grabbing them out of my notary bag. Tons and tons of blue pens. That's the number one tool. I take pens from my clients. That's what I do. I just take pens from my clients, and I use that. And I take a few, and I keep them at my home or in my mobile office, in my home office. And I usually have 2 from each title company, because in case I'm meeting with 2 borrowers. So I just have a lot of pens. And then if they want to keep the pens, they keep the title company's pens. And it doesn't cut into my costs, but also I'm advertising for my clients. Because now if the borrowers want to do something again with title, they've got the pens and they can look up the company again. So I personally carry a lot of pens of my title companies, my directs. I have a ton of them, a ton. And then when I run low, I just go grab some more. When I just pop in their office, say, hi, how's everything going? I'm going to grab a couple pens, and I grab a couple pens. And because of that, I don't market and bring pens. I don't do that because I would say all of my title companies, they all have their own pens with their logo and brands on them. Like every single one of them. Every single one of them has their own pens with their company on it. And so I don't bring pens to that. I did at one point, and in fact, I still have some of them. I still have some with my branding on it. You might be able to see it on YouTube. Anyway, I've got a couple pens with my logo, and it's just, it just says, it has my logo, and then it says Peak Signing, and then right there it says .com, because that's my website, peaksigning.com. And so I keep these pens in the mobile office. So if we're signing, people can grab pens. I have, like a cup holder. I got cup holders on each side of the van with pens with my logo and then some hand sanitizer, also with my logo on it. And that's in the back of the mobile office here. So I keep these pens. So I got branding pens, but I don't give them out anymore. I just kind of have them during the signings. But because they cost a good amount, I only use the pens with my logo on it if I think I'm going to be meeting with a signer who is an investor or who might give me return business, because I want them to keep it and they can think of me and then go to my website and hire me for all their notary needs. But if it's just John and Jane Doe just randomly buying their home or refinancing their home, I don't use these pens because I don't want them to take these pens. There's a good chance they will never think about me using these pens. They'll just use them in the house to take notes and things like that. And when the kids are going to take it and they're going to get lost, and no one will ever think about me. But these are gel pens. But I do give these away. If I know that the signer is someone who invests in homes, or they might do something like that, like they might have return business, then I use these pens and let them keep it. I'm like, hey, just we'll go to my website. If you need a notary again, there's my website. Feel free to reach out to me. I'll be happy to come back and do some more notary work for you. So that's what I use. And I use Pilot G2 pens. All right, that is what I use. Pilot G2. The reason I use this specifically is if I pull out all my title company's pens again, I would say the majority of them use this pen. So if the majority of my clients, the majority of my title companies use this exact same pen, they must be happy with this pen. They must like the way it writes. So that's why I ordered this one. I also will use it if I feel like it's someone who has a hard time writing. Maybe it's someone who's a little elderly and it's just kind of hard for them to write. The gel pens write a little smoother. These pens do have quick drying. They do dry pretty quickly. So I'm happy with these. I like these. I can put my branding on it. They write smoothly. They dry quickly. So no, they're not getting smudged. So I like using these pens. And because most of my clients were using them, I started using them. And I like them a lot. But because they cost more than most pens, I only use these for certain occasions. Like I said, if I think I'm going to meet somebody that I can have return business with, then yeah, I'm going to be using these pens. If I'm doing something random, maybe one of my signing service owner friends asked me to do a signing for them, or and they pay me like one of my directs. I carry a bunch of these blue Bic pens. These are probably 10 cents each, okay? They're literally 10 cents. And I go through I've never used an entire pen. I go through these so quick. People take them, and I don't care. They cost 10 cents each. I buy a big box from Amazon of these blue Bic pens. And I like to get the medium. So this is they're called Bound Sticks. So again, if you're looking on YouTube, you can see it, but they're pretty basic and they're medium. Going back to the Pilot G2 pens, I like to use the 0.7. That's like the medium. It's not the fine where it's too thin. Maybe it might look like a black ink, and it's not too thick where it's thicker, more potential for smudging. So I like medium pens. All right, so all the Pilot G2s are medium. These Bic sticks, these basic, you've seen these. You 100% have seen these. And I just realized I'm so funny. I'm wearing a light blue shirt, so it is matching the shirt I'm wearing. Anyway, it costs 10 cents. If people want to keep them, that's fine. People even ask, can we keep the pens too? Sure, keep the pens. But again, if I feel like it's somebody that's going to be an investor who might have return business, I will use my pens with my branding on it. Or if I'm doing maybe a reverse mortgage, the person's a little elderly, they kind of struggle writing. These ballpoint pens, they write fine, but sometimes you put a little bit more pressure with them, so the gel pens just write more smooth. You have to be careful when you pick out a gel pen, because the tendency, same with rollerball pens. Rollerball pens and gel pens could smudge. So as they're writing, especially if someone's left-handed, as they're writing and their finger drags, it might smear the signatures or smear whatever they're writing. That won't be good. So you have to be careful. In fact, majority of the time, I do recommend using, actually, a ballpoint pen, especially for the signers. These are just instant dry. These are instantly dry. They're oil based versus water based. That's why they're oil based. They just as soon as the pen touches the paper, they're dry. Rollerball, fountain pens, gel pens, those are water based. They're going to stay a little wet. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. I personally think ballpoint pens, especially starting off, it's just your best route to go. If you're someone that wants to do a lot of advertising and you want to get your name out there, you can still get some branding done on ballpoint pens. If you personally like a certain pen, you can have your own pen that you keep with you. That's what I was doing. I was actually giving borrowers, the ballpoint pens, the cheap ones, and then I was using the nice gel pen. But I'm very careful. I'm being very careful. I'm not dragging my finger over it. I'm not smearing it. And signers tend to not really think of that while they're signing. And they could do that. My recommendation, especially starting off, but just if you're just doing a lot of signings and people are just taking all your pens, get the cheap ballpoint, these big stick pens that are like 10 cents each. I buy a huge box. I buy a box from like off Amazon, and I don't know how many pens were in this box. It was a thick box, and they've lasted me a long time. I'm getting towards the end here, and I'm going to order some more soon. And I just keep like, I don't know, 10 of these in my notary bag. And maybe at the end of the week, I'll see how many I've got. Or if I know I'm running low, I'll just stock up on them. One little pro tip, though, for you. These pens, when you first use them, they might not work right away. So as I grab these pens and I pull them out of the box and put them in my notary bag, I'll just remove the cap real quick, and I'll just do some on some scratch paper, some blank nothing paper. I'll just start squiggling some lines all over the page just to kind of get the ink starting to flow a little bit. So when the signers go to sign, it's not brand spanking new, and it doesn't right off the bat. Kind of get the ink flowing a little bit first. So that's just a little pro tip that I do on these pens. When I first open them up to put them in my notary bag, just kind of scribble a little bit, get the ink flowing. Then I throw them in my notary bag, and I just, most of the time, I'm using these pens or one of my clients' pens. I just take them from their office. And that's marketing for them. If they want to keep it, fine, keep it. And that's just marketing for them. And if I run out of my clients' pens before I go back into their office to get new ones, then I'm using these ballpoint, big stick, cheap pens. You want to keep it? Sure, no sweat off my back. But if you want to keep one of my branded pens, I mean, these are like, I don't know, a couple dollars each. I mean, with the branding, it's probably like $3 each. Probably about $3 each with the branding on it. Okay, so I don't use these all the time, only if I feel like I can maybe get some return business. So those are my recommendations. Use the ballpoint. Be careful using rollerball or gel pens. They're pretty similar in how they write. It's going to be a smoother write. They're a lot more comfortable. I'll share with you what pen I use. I would discourage using fountain pens. I have some fountain pens. I love using fountain pens for personal use. I might do some journaling. I might write some thank you cards, some birthday letters. I do a lot of personal writing. I've always liked nice pens. I've always liked nice pens. I just think they're so classy. And when I pull out my fountain pen and I write a personal letter to somebody, I love the experience. It's a great experience. It is enjoyable. It's relaxing. I have my nice little notebook, and I'll just write something in there. Some thoughts, some ideas. I'm reading a book. I'll write some notes down from the book I'm reading. And I really enjoy it. And I just take my time writing. It's nice and elegant. But they're not very consistent. And they will tend to bleed through paper, fountain pens. They'll tend to bleed through paper. They might smudge. Maybe a little bit too much ink comes out. And it's just problems with fountain pens. I just discourage ever using fountain pens for loan signings. If you want to do fountain pen for like a basic general notary job, you're just signing one thing, sure, not a big deal. But for like loan closing, I definitely would discourage using fountain pens. I encourage using ballpoint pens. I want you to use those. I encourage those. If you're going to use a gel or ballpoint, make sure it is quick drying. Make sure it dries quick. In fact, I tested. Before I bought the pen that I'm going to show you that I use, I wrote in a notepad. I wrote a lot of stuff. And as soon as I wrote, I rubbed my fingers across the page to make sure that it was not smearing or smudging the ink. And it didn't. So I felt comfortable getting this pen for me. It's a pen. What I use for me is just a personal pen. I've always liked nice pens. And I keep mine in a leather little pocket. It's a leather little sleeve. And I put the pen in my leather sleeve, and I put this in my pocket. And I just pull this out every time I'm going to do a closing or sign anything. I'm going to sign a receipt. I bought something. I'm going to sign the receipt. I'm writing a note. I'm writing a letter. I'm leaving a message. I just always have a pen on me. As a notary, we always have pens on us. And I've always liked nice pens. And I've always liked this certain pen that I'm going to show you in a moment. But I just couldn't validate purchasing it. And I've bought other nicer looking pens. And I can tell you, there is a difference. There's a difference. And I love using this pen. I'm going to unsheath it from its leather sleeve. And if you're on YouTube, you can see it. And if you are not familiar with it, you can just look it up online. But it's a Mont Blanc. I know, it's French. And it's a lot of times pronounced Mont Blanc. Montblanc. This pen is actually a ballpoint pen. And I've replaced the ink inside with a gel ink. I personally like the ballpoint pen because it has a twist and it's ready to write. With fountain pens and rollerball pens, a nice caliber one, you actually remove the lid and you put the lid down on the table. But as things are moving, you might knock it over, and I don't want that. I like the ballpoint pen as my everyday pen because, again, it's just a twist. The pen comes out, I write. When I'm done, I twist it, it closes, and I resheath it into its leather sleeve. This was a dream of mine for a long time. I always wanted one of these Mont Blanc pens. I always thought they were classy. This one is the black lacquer with platinum, and I actually have it engraved with my name. So I actually engraved it. And it's just a fun experience for me. I do lots of closings every day, and it just makes it go. I just like the experience. And if you're a pen snob, I would love to know what pen you like to use for you personally. Again, go to YouTube in the comments and comment what pen are you personally. Do you use a different pen than the signers? Like I said, there's a difference. I've purchased $50 pens. This is more on this upwards of over $500. But I will say there's a difference between $50 and a $500 pen. I have fountain pens as well of this, and it's just a pleasurable experience writing. I like to write personal cards, so I don't go and get birthday cards. I actually make my own birthday cards. I actually handwrite them, and I do a wax seal, and it's just very enjoyable for me. It's kind of my artistic outlet, and it's just fun for me. And I wasn't able to justify buying this type of a pen until I was a successful business owner with my notary business. And even my wife was like, "Oh my gosh, are you kidding me?" I'm gonna try it. Just try writing them. She's like, it is pretty nice. It is pretty nice, and it looks beautiful. And so I've got a couple of these, and I'm looking at other ones to buy as well, just to kind of carry around with me. But that's what I like to carry. It's a ballpoint Mont Blanc pen, but has a gel insert because it just writes smoother. I will say this, gel and rollerball, the ink does usually tend to go much quicker. Again, I think because it's water-based, the ink tends to go out quick. So I always keep a couple spare refills in my notary bag as well, in case I've run out. Ballpoints are going to last you a very long time. Again, you probably won't even go through an entire one of these cheap Bic stick ballpoint pens. I've never had an issue with one of these pens. They've always written consistently every time. I've never run out because at some point someone has always just kept the pen. So I've never run out. But me personally, I like to use one of these pens. I just find it's just a more enjoyable experience. If I'm enjoying the experience of signing these mortgage documents, that means I love what I do. Are there other things that you do that makes you love what you do? Again, comment. I'd love to know. But for me, it's pulling out this pen. And when I meet someone who's also maybe like a pen snob, and they go, "Oh, can I use your pen?" Because they know it. They're very familiar with it. That has its the logo that people are familiar with. And it's just a nice bond with somebody. We're like, "Oh, great, you have pen." I actually was in a closing last week, and he pulled out a Mont Blanc fountain pen. That actually is a much nicer pen than mine. It actually costs 3 times as much as my pen, and it's actually it's a really nice pen. And he was using a fountain pen, but it was a fine, and it actually wrote just fine, so I was okay with him using that one. And it was just kind of cool to bond and say, "Oh, you got the solitaire." He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, here's mine. Mine's just the basic one, but I love it." And he was like, "Yeah, I love my pen." Anyway, it was just a fun talking point. And I keep it in this little leather sleeve, and it just stays safe from being scratched up. But anyway, I thought in this episode I'd share with you exactly what pen that I like to use. It's fun, it makes it more enjoyable, and it makes me love what I do when I pull out that pen. Like, I just enjoy the process. And I just want to share with you what pens that I think is most cost-effective and useful for you. You can never go wrong, by the way, with a ballpoint pen. Never. You can never go wrong as long as it's a blue pen for mortgage closings. You can never go wrong with it. But if you do like the experience of a gel or a rollerball pen, I say do it, as long as it's quick drying. And how do you know? Just scribble on the page real quick, on a blank page, and then rub your finger real quick over the page and say, did it smear? If it did, maybe don't use that pen. You can be careful, but as you flip the page over and it touches the other pages, it might still smear. So you just want to be careful of that. All right, anyway, that's the pen that I'm using. Again, please comment. Let me know what kind of pen you are using and why. Why do you like a certain pen? Did someone get you into it? Did one of your escrow officers recommend it? Why? Why do you use a certain pen? I'm very curious. Or you just found a really cool deal, or because you found a really good deal and that put nice branding, it just looks professional. I'd love to know why you use the pen you use. Thanks for watching or listening to this episode of the Peak Signing Agents Podcast. If you know any other notary friends that could benefit from this, please share it. On YouTube, we just went over 1,000 subscribers. I think that's cool. I hope I'm bringing value to you. Please let me know if there's anything that you think I can also talk about that might help you. We talk a lot about a lot of different things on this type of a podcast, okay? Where I'm talking about certain forms. We're talking about notary laws, best practices, mindset of an entrepreneur, how to run a notary business or any type of business. We talk a lot of different things on this. And I hope you are getting value. And if you are, again, if you haven't yet, subscribe, comment, share. I appreciate all of you, and I do appreciate all of your comments. I do see every single comment, whether you comment on YouTube, you send me a DM, you comment on my social media. I see it. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And if you want to follow me on social media, it's at Peak Signing. Talk to you in the next episode.